But this is the perfect like springboard to kind of share a bit of the stuff that I'm excited to share with you because it's exactly what you're talking about. Um, so the book, you're saying like people remix it already, right? So
Mm,
there's obviously this thing of knowledge is so much more alive and kind of flowing and evolving than the kind of modern Western view of it is. And kind of like books are great, but evolving books where all the paragraphs can be remixed and recombined and all that stuff is so much more powerful for stuff like culture to flourish. And I've been thinking about this, and of course I've been thinking about this stuff for like a long while, but I had this kind of theoretical framework that I shared with the ProjectLiminality video, stuff like that. But the mapping to software was always a bit. I was searching for a thing that felt right because there were like a million ways to do it, just hack away
mm,
but what I was always looking for was something that was so fundamental in the software as and also so simple, let's say, and lightweight as kind of the theoretical framework was kind of proposed because what I call the monologous node, and I think I would love to call it like a dream node in the future more. I like that language more, but this fundamental node of knowledge or story or whatever, um, this is like meant to be as abstract as possible. So I was always looking for the most abstract unit in the digital,
mm,
and I found like Nico with Atom, and polishing came up early. There are all these very fundamental approaches, and
mm,
yeah. But recently, a thing came to mind that's very funny because my very first communication of these ideas when they were still like growing and not fully mature yet, they're still growing, but there was important piece was still missing. The very first kind of thought that felt like worthy of making it a thing and giving it a name was what if we what if we generalize GitHub to ideation writ large, including every like every any form of symbol pointing to any form of story. Um, and so it was like the GitHub of ideas was the first kind of subtitle to ProjectLiminality, and and I kind of discarded that as just an early, very underdeveloped version of a thing because so much was still missing, like the monologos, dialogos, differentiation, and I didn't know about the image metaphysics, and like so much changed. And now I'm kind of coming full circle, and like, wait a minute, GitHub, and more importantly, Git, and hopefully a more decentralized implementation of collaborating with Git, but Git, let's call it that, is actually so profound because it's so simple. It is literally just a folder, right? And what is more abstract than a folder and like a blank canvas, a folder in the digital that kind of knows its history, keeps track of its evolution, and through submodules knows its relationship to other units, other folders, other Git repos. And then I kind of uh, I thought I wanted to build a prototype for Project Capacity on GitHub because you can do this amazing thing of posting Git repositories, the GitHub repositories as GitHub pages. You just have to put in like some HTML into the repo and hit publish, and boom, it has like its own website. So you can build a whole UI on that with almost no effort, right? You just have to import a submodule containing all the website files that kind of programmatically fetches from the repository the symbols that it represents, creates the website, and you have an UI that is just the UI for GitHub, but used in a different way. And then there are GitHub actions where you can um, you can implement rules like if submodules get imported, aka kind of dialectic being performed, you can trigger the coherence beacon that works this way. And so I was like, oh my god, like GitHub is already almost everything we need for this open source collaboration. We just need to kind of a new attitude toward what it is. It is much more than just a software development framework. Um, yeah, and so your book, for example, imagine like you would in a non-linear way just create these chunks of ideas. Each paragraph of each chapter does its own repo. And then you, through submodules, you can establish this relationship, and actually import the text, right? Actually use Markdown to really make it work like computer code in that sense. And there are ways to map animations to Python scripts and stuff like that. So basically, like the sky is the limit. It feels to me like how you can, what you can do in that, because yeah, I think I'll stop here. But like this is the stuff that kind of really caught my attention. I thought maybe it goes further than just a prototype. Maybe this is an ontology that can hold everything else, because the development ontology, not an app framework. A framework to build apps itself, to collaborate on code with large. So
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It feels like the kernel of Git is a really like, and then everything on top of that is like the sure, we use it for code development, but that's only because that's where it was developed in, and I mean it's kind of of the nature of code development, because it's Git is well, yeah, we've been talking for years about a Git in the back end, but like Google Docs in the front end as a like collaborative editing tool, as a comms person, where we have often like 5 people editing a doc, or like marking up a doc at the same time. Google Docs is so helpful because you have a nice interface, you've got comments, you've got suggestions, you can add them and clear them. But then you don't have on the back end, I mean, you've got some kind of custom like Google commit system. It's not Git, so we're like, how do we uh produce the same like front end affordance as Google Docs, but the back end affordance of Git, where I could take, so let's say like 3 versions ago, that document, and I could fork it over here, and I can keep working on that one, as opposed to like having to revert the doc. And I mean, I guess you could revert the doc and make a copy, but it would be really like yeah. I'm curious how we can build new UX affordances to make Git even more helpful, and not even necessarily in like writing words versus writing code, but even like, what are my beliefs? What are my priors? What are your beliefs? What are your priors? And how can um, some kind of like automated matching system come along and say like, okay, these are his priors, these are his priors. Wow, they match almost 1 to 1. These people should know each other. This could be like a recommendation engine of like, oh, okay, I used to think this, then I saw your, commit over here of one of your priors. And actually, since we're so matched on all of these things, maybe my prior needs to grow here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know that until some kind of recommender engine went through and said, oh, okay, here's I guess we have to be also careful of creating silos, right? We don't want to just combine like with like. Actually, but I mean, this could be the recommender engine too. It could be like, look, these people need to learn new things. We should also include new information, and having control over those algorithms, rather than just having them like force fed to us by a corporation that wants to profit off of our attention.
Right.
I think there's so much interesting space to explore here. It could be, yeah, really, really rich.
Yeah. So yeah, let's dive in, like the possibilities, like how you could use that, because there's just like 2 or 3 more kind of details that popped up, that seem so trivial, but maybe cause a major paradigm shift of how we relate to the different. One of them being, how are users kind of represented in the digital, and what is a profile? Because what is so interesting in, like, I've been trying to just find the most simple way to build to hack together some prototype, some MVP for ProjectLiminality. And so I've been trying to cut all the corners I can to do that without, spending all of my time working on it, just like on the side, make something that works. And actually, maybe you remember that part from the PL video, like the whole interface that I'm looking at, that I would like to implement on it, it consists of monologous and dialogous nodes, which basically just means like stories and people telling stories, you know. And actually, I thought all the time, if I use GitHub or something like that, I need to find some way to use the GitHub username as match that to the dialog, like somehow use that unit. And now I have figured out actually it's much easier for me if just the basic like basic software implementation of these nodes is the same. So it's both GitHub repository. So I have just many ideas in my, let's call it inner garden or something like that, all these stories that I hold. And 100 of them might be about ideas, and 20 others might be about just the people that I interact with. But in a sense, it's also a story. So it's fundamentally not necessarily that different, only that these stories I can talk, right? And these stories I can only talk about. And what this would mean is actually and what it does is it goes back to the natural organic flow of how the relational field evolves and like the social field evolves naturally, which is I don't define, as I do now on Facebook, that this is the picture everyone sees of me when they search for my name, and this is the bio everyone reads. This is so unnatural. Like in no indigenous context would that ever be the case that you define how people see you. And that's really, really bad, I think, for your psychology actually, to be given that task. But rather you define how you see your friends, and you define kind of what connects you with them. So imagine that you just have a GitHub repository. I would have a repository called that. I would throw in MySoapPunk, I would throw in like Myto, the
Michael, yeah, Michael Punk.
Punk. Okay. I would throw that stuff in there. And I don't know, like if we had some kind of the super random adventure together, maybe some photos that remind me of that, but it would be like my relationship to you, it'd be totally private, just our thing. And this would be the case for everything. And you and more and more I feel like that this lack of a global state that is kind of native to the decentralized technology is actually, that's how reality is. And it's actually very healthy to do that. So I'm still like seeing the value of some global system and stuff like that in the short term. But I found it very interesting to decentralize profile in that way. And I don't know if anyone consciously has done that. In context on your phone, right? Everyone does that, but it's almost like a limitation. But actually, I think it's a feature, not a bug. You always define it yourself.
Totally. That is such a nice, like refreshing way to look at it. I really wish, we had the ability to rethink how we've created tech thus far. Like it's crazy to me that, our relationship is mediated by a handful of apps that are run by corporations that, own that data, that, if they go down, that data is gone, that like you're so right. Like I love the relational aspect where it's like, I'm a node, you're a node, and the edge between us is all of the stuff that we value about that connection, right? It can be photos, it can be contacts, it can be like impressions. Like some of those things could be shared. Like maybe I upload photos and you can also see them. Or maybe I just write down like some to-dos that I'm not necessarily sharing with you, but I want to remember next time I talk to David, here's the list of things I want to talk about, and that is not necessarily on like my Obsidian I use now, or maybe I use Telegram, or maybe we're talking on email, or maybe, we're communicating by a phone number, but having all of those like disparate, then I have to remember, oh, what app was I even talking to him on, and where, oh, I wrote that message on there, but this other conversation happened over here. So yeah, how do we not necessarily unify, but at least simplify, and remove all of the the competing pressures of different corporate interests, or I'm starting to have like conversation threads on Instagram, but I get so distracted because every time I like try to back out of the conversation, it brings me to my feed, and then there goes half an hour before I even realize I'm scrolling Instagram, and it's like, damn it, they've monopolized our communication platforms, and they're like sucking our attention into them. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. This all sounds amazing.
And here's a crucial step of it as well, which is because I know like some people I'm talking to are thinking about creating, for example, an app that kind of plugs into all the other communication platforms and kind of has an AI summary of like, here's the communication. But as far as I know, they probably maybe only because of technical limitations create something that you use rather than something else. So it's kind of like this fight again for market share. And I really, really don't want to be fighting that fight. Like this is just like reinventing the wheel often because it's forced to because of technical limitations, and then having to fight for something that you didn't even want to, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
how can this thing be as orthogonal to everything else out there as possible, and just be this humble thing in the background of like, this is very fundamental. Like you don't need to change anything. And I think Git is perfect because you just talked about Obsidian. Well, Obsidian just uses biases. So you can use Obsidian, and this project liminality type thing would still be totally open. It's a folder, like it's as open as it can get. Any like follow chain can access that. Atom can access that. All these technologies, if they can't access a folder, they're probably not a bit technology, right? So
Right.
that to me feels like the one of the most exciting things about it, that it's just so simple that yeah, everyone is kind of invited to play, and it's meant to be. So if we do it on GitHub is meant for code collaboration, and as soon as like the intention of that thing is, for me at least, quite clearly to challenge the establishment of status quo. Like it's meant to make us do interesting things that right now we can't do, that we should do. So GitHub is not, feasible at some point with Microsoft. But the beautiful thing is, it's meant for code collaboration. So you can get your data, right? Like you can clone all the stuff down. Like you can do everything there. No worries. We just have it all cloned to our machines, and we can easily move everywhere because it's a folder. And people can work on GitHub, like every revolutionary technology that is being developed for the digital, well, it will use Git, right? Like everyone uses that, and most use GitHub, but it doesn't really matter. Git plus some collaboration spread on top of that. So that is to me the exciting thing. Like when a thing starts evolving itself, the super organism starts just building the tooling like on the go. Everything bubbles up in real time, like we build the plane as we fly, kind of thing. So yeah.
Totally.